Chapter 12 The Sighing Ghost Cave. They parked their bikes by the main trail that led around the base of Lookout Hill. There was no sign of Tiger's bike, but that didn't mean he wasn't there. With all the bushes and trees and boulders around, Tiger could have hid his bike anywhere. Scott kept an eye out for him as they trotted along the trail. So far, so good. No Tiger. Scott turned off the short path that led up to the cave. He pushed past the screen of bushes and stopped. "Has Tiger come yet?" Rusty panted, coming up behind him. "I'm not sure." Scott wished he'd thought to look for footprints before they all rushed up to the entrance, but it was too late for that now. The wild blackberry vines trailing down over the narrow, rocky open to the passageway were swaying a little, but it could be from the breeze. "Are we going in?" Raymond asked. The thought of going inside made Scott feel suddenly cold all over. "It isn't 2 o'clock yet. Let's wait out here a few more minutes. There's no use hanging around out here," said Rusty. "Tiger had too much of a head start on us. He must be inside already." "Yeah, let's get it over with," Eric agreed. Kev turned on his flashlight and shone it around inside the entrance to the passageway. Raymond peeked around him to see. The breeze changed to a strong wind. "Who's going first?" asked Kev. "You are," said Eric, coming up behind Kev and Raymond. "Me?" Kev squawked. "Why do I have to go first?" "It's your light." Eric reached around Raymond and gave Kev a nudge. "Get going. We're right behind you." Kev hung back. Scott hung back, his mouth suddenly too dry to swallow. Being at the end of the line would be a lot safer. He'd get out there fast if the walls started closing in on him. His knees were shaking and his heart thumped hard against his ribs as he followed Rusty inside. The rocky walls were brightly lighted. Scott took a deep breath. In a few minutes, they would get Dad's mitt back and be out of here. Up ahead, the light dimmed and Kev rounded the twist in the passageway. The walls moved in. Scott took quick little breaths. Being at the end of the line hadn't been such a great idea after all. "Hey, watch it. You're walking on my heels," Rusty complained. The beam of light grew bright again. Scott forced himself to back off a little from Rusty. "Just a few more steps," he told himself. "We're almost there." The light spread out as Kev reached the entrance to the cave. They all crowded up close. Scott needed room to breathe. He started to push past Kev into the cave. "Ah," a moan filled the cave. "Oh," the sigh echoed. "Yo, the ghost!" Kev yelled. Flashlight flew up in the air. It landed with a thud and went out. "Let me out of here," Scott yelled. There were arms and legs and bodies everywhere, pushing, shoving, kicking. "Get out of my way!" An elbow slammed into Scott's ribs. "Move over!" a voice yelled in his ear. "Get off my foot!" Somebody gave Scott a shove. Suddenly he was free. Scott was never quite sure how he got out of the passageway. He found himself outside in the warm sunlight, struggling to catch his breath. His knees were shaking so hard he couldn't stand up. He sagged against a boulder. Kev, Eric, and Rusty dashed past him. "Come on," Rusty yelled. "We're getting out of here." "Wait for me." Scott pushed himself away from the boulder and stumbled after them, then remembered and looked back. Where was Raymond? He couldn't still be in the cave. "Raymond!" There was no answer. An icy finger of fear shivered down Scott's spine. He moved slowly up to the entrance on rubbery legs and peered into the darkness. Raymond? Scott strained his ears to hear. A faint sobbing sound came from far away. Panic leaped in Scott's chest. He backed away. I can't go in there without a light, he told himself. I'd never find Raymond in the dark. You have a light, a small voice inside his head reminded him. Scott pulled the flashlight from his hip pocket and, with a trembling hand, and turned it on. Compared to Kev's, it was like holding a candle. This is too dim, he muttered. It's better than no light at all, the voice said. Stop being such a coward and hurry. Don't leave Raymond in there all alone. Scott took a cautious step into the passageway. The weak light only pierced the darkness a few feet ahead of him. How long would it last? What if the light went out when he was in the cave? He wondered as he took a few more steps. The walls began to close in on him. Scott spun around, ready to run. The sobs were louder now. He stopped and turned around, but Scott couldn't force himself to take another step into the darkness, not even for Raymond. Please, God, he prayed. I can't do this alone. Help me. Help me find Raymond and get him out of here. A calm feeling began to settle over him. Scott took a slow step forward, then another and another. Before he had time to think about it, he was standing at the opening of the cave. The small circle of light lighted up only a small part of the rock-strewn floor. The far corners of the cave were shrouded in inky blackness. The sobs were coming from somewhere on his left. Scott had to swallow twice before he found his voice. Raymond, where are you? The cry broke off in a stifled sob. Here, over here. Raymond didn't sound like himself at all. Come on. Scott sucked in a shaky breath. We have to get out of here. This flashlight isn't going to last much longer. I can't. My foot's stuck. Come help me. Scott's hand trembled as he shone the light around. The inky blackness made the beam seem even dimmer. Keep talking so I can find you. Scott picked his way cautiously across the rock-strewn floor. This way, over here, over here. A minute later, Scott spotted the huddled figure, but it wasn't Raymond. It was Tiger. Why didn't you say it was you? Ducking his head, Tiger scrubbed a quick hand across his tear-stained face. I was afraid you'd go off and leave me. My foot's caught under this big rock. I can't move it by myself. It's too heavy. Scott turned the lights onto the tilted rock. Tiger's foot was trapped in a wedge-shaped triangle between the big rock and the rock beside it. Are you hurt? No, my foot isn't broken. I just can't pull it out with my shoe on. And I can't reach the laces. Maybe I can. Scott got down and shone the light under the rock. Tiger's foot was trapped in a pocket between the rocks. There was no way to get it out. I'll try to move the rock. Scott laid the flashlight on top of another rock with the beam pointed toward Tiger. Get ready to pull your foot out. Scott braced his feet and pushed with all his might against the rock. It didn't budge. It's too heavy for me, too. I'll have to go get help. No, don't leave me here in the dark, Tiger cried. Maybe we can move it together. You push and I'll pull. The light was growing dimmer. Scott wanted to snatch it up and run, but he knew how Tiger felt. All right, but we need more light. Where's your flashlight? Did you drop it somewhere around here? I didn't bring one. You came in here alone without a light? Scott couldn't believe it. You could have been trapped in here for days before someone found you. I didn't know I'd need one until I got here. When I heard you guys coming, I hid in the passageway. Then I came in ahead of you and ducked down behind a rock so I could scare you. That was you moaning and sighing. Yeah, it was a dumb thing to do, but I never expected Kev to drop the flashlight. I tried to follow you guys out, but got all turned around in the dark and ran the wrong way. The light had faded to a soft yellow glow. Scott's chest began to feel tight. If we don't hurry, we're going to be here in the dark. Pull! Scott threw his weight against the rock. It rocked back a few inches. Scott gritted his teeth and held it. I'm free! Tiger scrambled backward and jumped to his feet. Let's get out of here. Scott snatched up the light and they ran down the passageway.